Welcome to Heart and Hand, the Rangers podcast, the podcast that has 165 staunch points already. This week on Heart and Hand, when the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's a new kit supplier. So welcome to Heart and Hand, the Rangers podcast. My name's David Edgar. I am your host, and I'm joined this week by an all-star cast, a stellar panel of Heart and Hand podders. Yes, lockdown might not be good for most businesses, but in terms of keeping all these guys where I need them, it's been ideal. Joining me, first of all, is Mr. Andy McGowan.
Hello, David. Hello, folks.
Also joining us this evening is the lovable Livingston Lothario himself, who apparently doesn't live in either Livingston or Bathgate. It's Cameron Bell.
Hello, David. Hello, everyone. Wonderful to speak to you from West Lothian.
Yeah, this is. Let's face it, I'm not going to know anyway, so that's as good as it's going to get. And just adding a touch of class to the proceedings, it's the master of mellifluous melody, Mr. Martyn Ramsey.
How are you, David? How are you, everybody?
I'm all right. I have to admit, I've survived this weekend's internecine strife over the announcement on Friday of MyGers, which is the membership club launched by the club this Friday. It costs £50 a year to join, although there is a discount of £10. And for that, there are various tiers, there are various things you get for it, and it gives you various advantages when it comes to getting tickets for away matches. There's a gold, silver and bronze tier for semi-finals and finals. Very popular in some places, 5,000 members already, but in others not so much, particularly with regards to those away tickets. And that's one of the reasons why I asked on Andy, who runs an RSC. He's the convener of a bus, the Staunch Bus itself, and Martyn, who is regularly caught up in the ticket scramble. I wanted to get their opinions on it, and Cammy as a neutral, who just basically gloms all the people we know for free tickets when the opportunity arises. So a wide range of opinions here, and we'll start off with you, Andy. Now, one of the reasons that this has proved quite controversial, I think, is the idea that it brings in a two-tier system for supporters, and that how dear you are to the club will come down now to how much you can afford to give them, and that it creates a situation where wealthier fans get an advantage. The other side of the coin is the club are saying, no, it's not that. It means that those people who want to get access to tickets, and not everybody does, will still be able to do so. And it does, of course, provide much needed revenue to the club at this very difficult time. What are your thoughts then, having had a couple of days to live with it?
I think the first thing that anybody discussing this has to kind of make sure is clear to everybody listening is it's subjective. It's subjective because it depends on your starting point of where your viewpoint will generally lie. So when I hear this, I think to myself, well, it's easy for me to be glib and say, well, I don't miss a match or very rarely miss a match. But it's also easy for me to say I spend a hell of a lot of money and I forgo a lot of things to go to see Rangers. I don't go big summer holidays because I spend a lot of money, and my wife goes as well. This is the thing you've got to factor in. So from my point of view, you could feel that I could quite rightly say, well, hold on a minute, I'm putting a lot of money in, so therefore should I not have a priority? However,
capitalist bastard.
I try to take myself out of that, and I try to make myself think of fans that dip in and out because they can't afford to do anything but that, and there's got to be a place for them as well. And the MyGers is kind of throwing all this into the mix because we've nothing else to take up our time, so it's easy to get caught up in it, but also it's the most existential question of a football fan is what makes a football fan? Who is loyal? What makes you loyal? Who deserves away tickets most is the thing that Rangers fans will always ask, and there's basically got to be some kind of measure to do that, because what we've got is a system where supply is nowhere near the demand. That's the starting point for me, and I know that sounds very harsh, but that is the reality. So I think where do you start is the first point, and then there's a lot of viewpoints, none of which are wrong, but there's got to be a common ground that meets a lot of the requirements for most people, that means you'll have people unhappy.
Martyn, you are, of course, somebody who goes to as many away games as you can possibly get to, and you are involved in the trying to get tickets, especially for matches where the supply massively outstrip, which is most of them these days, where the supply is nowhere near close to outstripping demand, rather. I know you've got a few concerns about the scheme.
I'm not so sure about too many concerns. It's not perfect, but no scheme will be. The last scheme, the ballot scheme, was far from that. I think fundamentally the way it's structured, I think you rewarding loyalty is the best way to do it. If you do have a game where tickets are more scarce than others, I don't have an issue with the fact that those who, as Andy says, give up so much of their life, their resources, their time to go and support Rangers, get first crack when those big ticket games come along. I've got no issue with that.
But is there a counter argument to that point that we've heard people have said to us this week is the reason I can't go every week is because I don't get tickets. It's the same people that get the tickets week in, week out. Is that a legit? And it does go back to Martyn's point about it really depends what your circumstance is as to how you view this.
Yeah, no, I get that if you're always at the front of the queue, then yeah, you've got an ideal opportunity to show your loyalty. People who want to be there, Andy knows this as much as anyone, the real diehards. I would put myself. I'll try to be kind. There is an addiction there. I try, but there are others who simply will be there. It's not an option. By hook or by crook, they'll be in that ground because they simply have to be. They will do, and it's not through the ballot scheme and anything else. They will find tickets wherever possible, and I guess they always will. But it goes back to Andy's point. You're talking about 600 tickets, 900 tickets for the kind of fixtures that you desperately want to see Rangers win more than any other. And having some kind of lottery for those, no, that's the kind of farce we've been in before as well. So if you have been to Ross County on a Wednesday night, and if you were going in the lower leagues when tickets were a hell of a lot more plentiful, then yeah, you probably should get first bite at the kind of, as I said, the big ticket games that we all want to be at. It's never going to be acceptable to everyone. It just isn't.
That's a fact. It's just it really is that simple. It's just there's no way to satisfy everybody. I would agree. See, this is a problem that I have when people ask me about this. There are certain things in life that I don't have a strong opinion on, and because I don't go to many away games these days, it probably doesn't affect me, and it's not as emotive an issue for me. So somebody will say to me, your point there, Martyn, the people that went in the lower divisions should get first bite at, say, Parkhead. And I always think, yeah, that sounds reasonable. But then, as I say that, and someone says to me, but I would go to these games if the ticket demand was available. It means that the people who are at the front of the queue will stay at the front of the queue forever. And I'm like, well, that's a good point as well. Mm-hmm. And then somebody else will say, but I follow the team in Europe, and I'll go, yeah, that's a good point. And it is difficult because I don't think anybody's being unreasonable. I think everyone's got a legit shout. I
don't think there are many people being unreasonable. The following in Europe thing, and this is maybe where my issue with the scheme is, and it's how the points are configured, and the tariff associated with following Rangers away in Europe is terribly low. And I know a lot of that money that's spent to follow Rangers doesn't go into the hands of the club, but it's almost impossible to follow Rangers without spending that money. I mean, it isn't almost impossible. It is impossible. So you're still asking people in their thousands to travel to the arse end of Eastern Europe and everywhere else in between. And they do that. And that's what lower than buying a rubber duck out the Rangers shop. You know,
Well,
the
reason that is, let's not be faux naive here, folks. The reason that is you say that people are being asked to follow the team at the arse end of Europe. They're not really, and that whether or not we want to accept this, I think we've all felt for a long time the club would rather they didn't. And
but we trade. I know it brings complications, but we trade off the fact, and let's not kid ourselves either. We do. The club implicitly and fans explicitly trade off the fact that there are few clubs in the world that do what we do, in the numbers that we do, and as globalization homogenises football more and more, fans do like to eke out a bit of identity. And there is a bit of this is the real quiz about how many numbers you take to whatever. But it is part of Rangers and always has been. And yeah, I know it does bring some issues now and again, but there is something that the rest of Europe recognises there as well. And I just, that would be my issue with the scheme is how the numbers work. The principles are fair enough, but it's never going to suit everybody. And the previous system, if you have gamed it well and are no longer able to game it well, understandably there will be some umbrage there.
Yeah, Cammy, I think that's something that on both sides of the kind of argument when it pertains, I'm going to come to Andy in a minute on this, on RSCs, that people within RSCs will say I had a great point today from a listener. He said people who are not in RSCs don't understand that as well as the club being a huge part of your life, your RSC becomes such a big part of your life, and people may not understand it. So that's why people get very emotional and guarded about it. But then people who are not in RSCs, we've heard the moans, 2 bites at a cherry, you have advantage, etc. It's kind of difficult if you're not in either camp to really particularly take a side on it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not affiliated to an RSC. I have been in the past. I've ran buses. I've done all of that kind of stuff as well. I know what the scramble has been like in terms of what happens. I mean, years and years ago when you were doing, the CCCS, then it was a luck of the draw. Do you know what I mean? You had to have no rhyme or reason as to why, once every odd season you might get Parkhead, but you were almost guaranteed Kilmarnock. It was just, the way how the
Kilmarnock for like the last 28 years. And Kilmarnock when they won in the Premier League.
Yeah, everyone gets it. But I think the scheme, so first of all, I think I would agree with the fact that there is no right or wrong way to be able to do it that suits everyone. It's not as a one size fits all. It's not simply not going to do that. And as I kind of think we've kind of discussed as well, the difficulty you've got when you talk about this is you do throw in words like loyalty and tenure and, I will follow games by and large. So to counter Martyn's point in terms of the guys that we all know who would be there come hell or high water. And again, I agree. I think that there is a kind of explicit understanding that we know that there would be guys who, no matter where we played, there would be a travelling support. It's just simply a fact. You do have the other side of the coin where people will probably pick and choose games, and that might be to finance, might be to schedule, it might be to whatever their own personal reasons are. So typically, if you're not associated like me to an RSC, I would probably put a bit of a kind of call out to contacts, to people I know to say, look, if you've got spare tickets going, can I have one, blah, blah, what have you. Now, I think that from my perspective, if I was to join MyGers right now and say, right, well, I'm going to do that, the likelihood of me being able to try and do that and do everything officially via the club is probably pretty unlikely, because I'm not going to go down the route of joining an RSC if I can't commit to it, because I don't want to join a club that I can't put time and effort into, because you almost feel to a certain extent beholden with them. I've been lucky enough to travel in the last season quite a lot with Adam's club in terms of the guys at Baillieston. Absolutely brilliant guys. They've absolutely treated me, like one of their own. I absolutely love spending time with them. But I've said to them, I want to put money in, I want to do X, Y, and Z, because I'm taking up a seat in your bus. So therefore, there is that loyalty to your own club as well. So I totally get where some of those members would feel that, because then you're representing the RSC as well as representing the Rangers, away support. I do have umbrage with the idea of having gone to European games like away this last season, or this current season, however we're formalising it, and the fact that for me does feel like it should be more accountable to where a MyGers points might come into that, because again, like you say, we've seen things like the travel club and stuff as well, and points accrual been able to try and come into it as part of that. that's a problem for me. I don't like the idea that, you can spend X amount on however many European home games, for example, and yet a subscription to RTV is virtually the same thing. That, for me, feels slightly misaligned. But again, at the same point, I understand it. I understand the argument of saying it's money coming into the club, but I understand why we have to have this scheme now, because I think we're something at 5.5k members signed up already over 4 days, and yet that's a huge cash injection into the club when it probably needs it under the current circumstances. So I think people need to be patient with it. I think there's rights and wrongs to it, depending on your circumstances and what you want to do. But you're never, ever, ever going to get a scheme that suits everybody. It just simply won't happen. And if people do think that, they are absolutely kidding themselves.
Andy, you run an RSC, you know the problems that RSCs face, and that has been the subject of quite a lot of debate on social media with, some RSCs saying this makes it more difficult for us, the fact that you have to pay to register every member. The reason that's put forward for this is, of course, that there's the so-called ghost clubs, where clubs game the system to try and give themselves more opportunity. It's not something I know too well, so I'd be keen to get your take on it.
Yeah, so when the MyGers came out last week and I had a read through it, my kind of gut reaction, because there's a lot of facets to it, and you can't actually compute the pros and cons there and there just by reading it. But my actual gut reaction to it was that this won't be particularly bad for my club, right, and for me running a club. Now, I've read with interest over the weekend a couple of guys who I respect and know, and they're in fantastic clubs, Robert Fulton at Grapes and so on and so forth, and spoke to them as well over Twitter and heard various viewpoints. Now, I'm probably breaking ranks a wee bit with the Supporters Clubs Union, because I'm probably coming out...
Scab!
As long as Andy gets a ticket, nobody else matters, including
you could just see Andy, couldn't you, in his wee fucking mini metro, driving past the picket lights to go and do a shift at the colliery. Martyn in the background with a uniform on, playing. Yeah, I know your type.
Yep, that's correct. So, I'm probably breaking ranks because I'm a wee bit different and I'm looking at it a wee bit differently. The reason I'm looking at it a wee bit differently is because I've seen what goes on, and I think that we need to be honest with ourselves. And I don't want to be a hypocrite as well, because I've gamed the system as well to help my supporters club to get tickets. So it was just one big massive game, and I think what this does is it makes it a wee bit more honest, right? But by the same token, I fully recognise that there's a lot of issues that are going to impact supporters clubs. Now, in preparation for this, I sat down and I said, right, I need to work out what are the pros and cons here. So the first big problem for supporters clubs is it's going to be a huge cost, because what you've got is the categorisation of supporters clubs, and I hate to bore you with the technicalities, but you need to get into nitty-gritty to understand it. The categorisation of supporters clubs will be deemed by the number of season ticket holders, which it always was, but also by the number of MyGers members we've got. And then the supporters club themselves will have to pay £10 per head for each registered member. So that is a massive cost, because I did a bit of quick calculation. The average membership of supporters clubs, based on the figures for last year, is about 31, right? But the category A plus buses, which are the big buses, their average is 70. So they're immediately looking at an additional £700 to get in the ballot, if you like, right? Which wasn't there last year. And if you extrapolate that over the years, it's a lot of money. However, my argument to that is that the member themselves has just doubled their chance. Well, not quite doubled it, but they've got 2 chances of getting a ticket. They've got the chance of getting it on the online access when it's open up to the tiers in the new system, and then they've also got a chance of getting it in their own supporters club's ballot. Now, to my mind, and this is only to my mind, I'll be passing that on to my members, because I'll be saying to them, look, if you want to be in the ballot and you want to take advantage of the reallocation that my supporters club's getting, or our supporters club's getting, give me a tenner, because it's worth it to you, because you've just increased your chances. And I don't think that for a tenner, I don't think that's arguable. The bigger problem is that supporters clubs that don't pass that on to their members are going to be left with the bill. You can see memberships potentially falling because the big draw for a lot of members is away tickets and access to away tickets and access to away travel. And if clubs aren't able to provide that, then sometimes you then say, right, what is the reason for being? Particularly so for clubs in and around Glasgow, where travel to Ibrox isn't an absolute necessity, where it is for Ayrshire, Dundee, Stirling buses. You've then got the kind of thing that you mentioned earlier on about the fact that supporters clubs are mini communities and they're interlinked with the club, and that they provide a facility for kids and families to go to Ibrox. And for people that don't have the link, I listened to your podcast, Cammy, about who are you, and you mentioned that your dad didn't really particularly go to the football and it was somebody else who took you. So there's people that want to go and follow Rangers, but they're not in a Rangers family per se. And that's where supporters clubs provide a link, because they'll take the kid that likes Rangers and lives in Inverness and they'll take him to Ibrox on a Saturday and he'll fall in love with Rangers. And if you break that link and you lose those supporters clubs, then long term you'll never get that back. So this is a thing that I think Rangers need to be aware of and cultivate. But again, you've got to get the balance between that and the kind of issues that away games have been causing, because the ticket issue is very, very problematic. And I think that there had to be something done. And what my message would be to people that are kind of saying, right, well, you're kind of kowtowing to the party line and you're liking what the club's doing for the sake of liking it. Not necessarily, because I'm aware that this is just a process and this is only started it. And there will be an opportunity for feedback, because it tells you that in the RSC email. And once it's kind of fine-tuned, I think if you jump forward 5 years, I think we'll be more at peace with it, because if supporters clubs are organised, they could potentially end up with more tickets on their bus than they do under the current system.
I think the interesting point as well that Andy, God bless him, is kind of also just kind of skip by as well, is that you're also talking about conveners themselves. Organising buses and doing all this stuff is the world's most thankless task. You end up doing it, and then you feel as if you're asking members for money, and you want to be able to try and make sure that runs.
But you do get your club's one ticket for.
Oh yeah, you obviously. I mean, you fix it so that you get every ticket you want. Of course, there's advantages.
No, I'll say that for him. He didn't fix it. He just told them we got one ticket and I'm taking it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I mean, they're a very understanding bus. I mean, they're not allowed to talk in the bus or speak to each other or have any form of verbal communication. But on a serious note, you will get conveners who will turn around and go, why am I doing this? Like, what is it that's going on here? You've got to be able to try and keep those kind of guys on side, because they work tirelessly, right? We do. I mean, I know we kind of take the mick and all that kind of stuff with Andy, but we all know he absolutely works his back off to be able to try and make sure that bus runs and to make sure it goes there. And it shouldn't feel like we're trying to make that harder.
There's also a lot of interest, as we've talked about at this minute in time, in Rangers away from home. Huge demand. If and when that disappears, another couple of seasons without much success, or the end of seasons when the game's pretty much up, who is it that takes the tickets? It is the RSCs, and it will still be the RSCs who will be there, as I said, come hell or high water. There was gaming in the system. I'm more annoyed that it had to be gamed, I think, rather than just prioritising those guys and then sorting the rest of us out later. This didn't used to be a problem, because we didn't used to get 900 tickets for Pittodrie, for example. That's been the issue, and it's just a simple issue of scarcity, and there's just no perfect solution. No,
unfortunately, but we'll see how it develops. I mean, I signed up for it. I'm fortunate to be in a position to be able to do it. At the moment, there's not a great deal of benefit to me for it, because, as I say, I'm not particularly interested in away tickets. Moving forward, though, the club are suggesting they're going to add things to it. But we have to look at this from a very basic capitalist point of view, and that is that they need the money, and they've got to try and exercise the revenue schemes as much as they can. And it can be difficult, because as supporters, on the one hand, they market to, and they do this, Martyn touched on it, they market to us about loyalty and emotion, but then they also want to run the way that a normal business does, which is very difficult. And there are times that annoys me, and then, though, I think, but I do want them spending as much money as possible on players and and having the best, want the stadium upgraded, all of that kind of thing. It's just a difficult place for everyone involved. Of course, though, I'm a sellout though to the club, and I just do what they tell us. So if anyone's listening out there, and you want to sign up for something, although I'm legally obliged to tell you to sign up for MyGers, sign up for us on Patreon instead, right? Because that's. I'm just kidding, because there'll be people going, Edgar saying put money into him rather than I can't win. I remember once actually I was at an away game. The tickets were scarce. A friend of mine, Robbie, had got tickets. And on FF after, I was like, oh, he's all right, isn't he? I saw Edgar was at it. Whereas I've also been told, you don't go to away games, call yourself a supporter. I was like, I can't. This is why I don't leave the house. You know what I mean? I can't win.
You get to remember, though, that in conjunction with MyGers, you do also get access to a free flagship show. So there are benefits for the listeners as well,
Cammy and I were trying to record an ad for MyGers, and one day on our deathbeds we'll release the outtakes because we could go to jail. But it took, for about a 1 minute spot, took about 6 days, but we got there in the end up. Right, moving on then, lads. The other main news over the weekend was James Bisgrove, the commercial director, suggesting that Rangers' relationship, if you want to call it that, with Mike Ashley will be coming to an end at the end of this current contract, which I believe expires at the end of July. This is, of course, on the face of it, fantastic news, balanced by the fact, Andy, that we have heard similar in the past.
Yep, we're scared. That's the phrase of the week, I think. The news, when was it, Saturday? The news, we've kind of cut ties with Ashley. We could only dream of that a couple of years ago, really. So we shouldn't really skip over it and say, oh, well, that's done, well done, guys, pat in the back, move on. It's a monumental thing that's happened. And to get there, I bet there's been a lot of pain and a lot of fraught discussions. I think I said on the Breaking News pod on Saturday, I don't think it's any coincidence that it's happened since Dave King's left. I don't mean that as a slight on Dave King, but it might just be that it's taken the edge out of the kind of personality clash and the bad blood that was obviously badly souring the whole conversation and dialogue. So I think that, and as you mentioned, James Bisgrove's come in, and the guy's got a pedigree. We've seen small things happen from the first day he started, and gradually they've got better and better. And now we're on the cusp of all singing, all dancing retail deal, which, as we all know, is a major factor in maximising the potential for the club and buying players and paying wages. Remains to be seen who it's with. We all know the rumours of Castor and all that, and I've got to admit I hadn't heard them before. You had, David, because you buy expensive clothes.
Yeah, of course you had fucking heard of them. They don't sell it in Aldi.
Oh, that's really funny. Well, listen. When did you?
You've no come back because you're sitting going right.
Andy's just turned into Charlie Nicholas.
He was just because he was going to go. He could tell he was going to go. No, actually, I shop in, and then he kind of the two shops that he knows are Woolworths, which went out of business 20 years ago, and House of Fraser, which he's not allowed in. So he was fucked. He does buy all his stuff in Aldi.
The point I was going to make, Mr. Edward, that regardless, at least I wear my clothes outside.
Mine's get kept. I don't actually wear them at all. That's the thing. I've got piles and piles of clothes that I've bought that I've got the labels still on. So
yeah, it's not a good thing, Andy, when you buy your clothes and all your fruit and veg in the same aisle.
Aye, listen, I'm not taking this off you. You just got my Harry Hill stunt double, so I'm not taking that.
Martyn, coming over to you then for a more sombre perspective on this. As a very well-dressed man, I don't suppose that you were a regular in Mike Ashley's places of business, but the effect that he's had on our club has been nothing short of catastrophic at times.
Oh, it has been. And listen, 2015 solved a lot, but it didn't solve everything. People expected immediate fixes of just about everything at the club, and this has been hanging over us for 5 years. And I can't imagine it has been easy to get to the end of. Andy was quite right. Not even a couple of years ago, this time last year, this looked like it was just going to be perennial. And we can't function, or we couldn't function properly without having that kind of control over our retail. It's been a big handicap to the basic operation of the club. I don't think it's completely coincidental that it's happened after King left, but I don't believe that's the issue. But regardless, it's huge news. It's difficult to really paint this as huge news given everything that's going on at the moment. But I think when everything does get back to normal, and Christ knows when that will be, we will see the benefits. To get it done at all is big. To get it done in this climate especially, we could have been in big trouble here, given everything that's going on, given we don't know when we're playing football again. Mm. And to get something that works for us, to get something that removes this cancer from the club, has been huge. If it is Castore, it will annoy the Adidas, I'm sure, even though the quality of kits from Adidas and Nike are nowhere near what they once were in the heyday of the 90s. Clearly, because you have bought some stuff before, it is good gear. They seem to be making a move just out of golf and tennis. They seem to have done a deal with the West Indies cricket team. So I don't think that's a coincidence either. They're clearly a brand that are willing to expand. And if it works for us, fine. I mean, that's really the name on the shirt is secondary to the ability for us to maximise the demand with the support to wear Rangers stuff, to have Rangers stuff, to support the club in that way, and that hopefully isn't a scarcity issue the same way that tickets are. It was one of the issues with Hummel that they couldn't meet that demand. Presumably there's been a bit of homework done, and that's not going to be the case. We have big issues in a football landscape at the minute in terms of being able to see our team. We have no issues in buying things online, and there are generations of Rangers supporters just itching to support the club in that particular way, especially over the summer. So easy for everything to pale into insignificance with what's going on, and the fact that football's suspended and pretty much indefinitely. But it's massive news.
Yeah, it is. It's huge. I'm sorry to have to break it to you because I was labouring under this misapprehension as well, that it's pronounced Castor, not Castore. But it was such a good line for the opening of the pod that I went with it. But I'm going to have to... we don't want a repeat of this whole Tavernier shitstorm, really, do we?
No, although that's correct.
Well, if I can interject, it's I'll die, not Aldi.
You will if one of them closes near you. You'll be forced to fucking pay for actual stuff rather than, oh, look, 12 pence for 19 tins of beans. But moving on, Cammy, yeah, I think Martyn makes an excellent point there. That, look, I used to care a great deal about who the supplier was, and it was when Nike that was ending that Nike were doing our kits, and I was raging. And a friend of mine said to me, "You don't buy a Nike top, you buy a Rangers top." And since then, that's kind of stuck with me. But the concern that is, I think, extremely legitimate is they're not a firm that can point to and say, look, there's a demand that matches yours and we've matched it in the past. So I think it's a legit concern.
I mean, it is, yeah, absolutely. And certainly we had some instances, I think, where even if you look at probably some more of the brand name stuff that we've had in recent seasons, like Puma, for example. I think my Puma top, I think the lettering fell off it when I took it out of the plastic
They were
bag.
shite. I can't understand why anybody was upset that it wasn't Puma. The Puma gear was rotten.
Yeah, but I think, so for me, there's a couple of things with that. I think what we settle on Castor, is that what we're calling it?
Okay, yeah, Castor is apparently the pronunciation.
Let's go with Castor. So I think that, as long as the strips look smart, I'm happy with that. I think that there's a certain aspect of it which is a brand appeal. I think Bisgrove is probably quite conscious about being able to try and develop that imagery and develop us as a brand. And so for me, that feels like if we've got something that we know is going to be stylish and looks good and aesthetically pleasing, phenomenal. From a finance perspective, if we've got a good deal with that and it's going to inject cash into the club, absolutely brilliant, because I'll throw people back to when we were in a situation, as we just touched on, that you couldn't even buy Rangers tops. So it's difficult. Our fan base can be incredibly fickle at times to say, you know, I wanted Nike, I wanted Adidas. Okay, well, I can kind of understand that to a point, but a few seasons ago, you couldn't even buy a top. So let's just be glad that we've got someone. And I think for me, looking into Castore and what they've done and what they're kind of going into, Martyn obviously mentioned the discussion of expansion at this point. I actually think some of their gear is very nice. I do think it's a bit pricey, but then, David, we don't all earn the blue pound you do. But then at the same point, I think if you're going to go out there and you're going to lead it, the only thing I want to see really from anything as part of this is kids in the streets wearing Rangers tops. And it always struck me when we had that embargo that we were just like, nah, we're banned from buying tops, and you never saw kids running about the streets wearing them and stuff. And that's what I would like us to be able to try and get back. And I think we did a lot of that with the Hummel gear as soon as that became available. I mean, I know that all of you bought it for younger relatives in terms of getting the brand out there and getting on doing all that kind of stuff. And that's what we want to get back to. So I hope they realise what they've bitten off, because if they produce some great quality gear, then absolutely we'll buy it. There's no doubt about it.
The only, sorry to interrupt, the only parallel that I've seen in football and British football is Aston Villa had a tie-up with a company called Look 1977 a couple of seasons ago, who were essentially a fashion label. They were looking to kind of branch out. It was a young guy that started in 2001. And I remember when that happened, I thought, what's that all about? Because it basically, they weren't a sports brand. Castore aren't quite a fashion brand. They are a sports brand, but they do have a crossover into fashion. So I think it's important that this could turn out to be genius, because what we might have found is a partner who needs us as much as we need them. And sometimes the best partnerships are found in things like that. So I'm looking at it with optimism, if it is indeed Castore. But the bottom line is the pounds. How much are we getting? What is the cut? And you might find that we've been able to negotiate a favourable kind of deal, because you've got a company that is on the up and up and isn't quite as commanding of the as Adidas or Nike would be doing in a contract negotiation. So I'm interested to see how it pans out.
Martyn, is there any scope for the fact that in terms of these names, you know, and they are the top, they are the sports brand names, that there will almost have to be a period of normality before that's a legitimate consideration, certainly for the type of money that we should get for the size of the club and the size of the business?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I imagine they wouldn't have touched us in recent times because of what we've discussed already. Rangers probably need to show that we really are the club we think we are in terms of reach and everything else, and clearly the confidence in that kind of community once was. But again, I don't know these things inside out. I'm not entirely sure that unless you are now an elite club and Champions League, late Champions League elite club, that this makes that much difference being with Nike and Adidas. You would get treated as a client very much at the bottom end of their interests and priorities, and there's a potential there. Who knows how it's going to work out? That when you have the kind of engagement that we are rumoured to have, that you're very much their priority. But yeah, I know what you mean. We've got still got a lot of rebuilding to do as a club in terms of that reputation. But the market's there. Rangers fans buy stuff like that. They buy a lot of it. But it had to be something that Ashley wasn't prepared to match.
Do you know what's ironic about all this as well is that, see, if we had signed a deal with Nike or Adidas, what I can absolutely guarantee you would have happened is that as soon as the new strip got launched, it would have been compared to the ones that we had back in the 90s, and it wouldn't have been considered as nice. You just know that would have happened.
No, absolutely. And we're talking here like it's a done deal. We don't know that. It might not be Castore. I think that certainly the way that it's been reported suggests that there's more than a little in that. But I think that it. And again, in terms of the actual strips, I'd need to see them. I do have some Castore stuff. It is good. It's very high quality. Against that, can you mass produce to that level? Mm-hmm. Having worked in the textile trade, I don't think you can. It's not cost effective to do so. So who knows? But I'm excited by it. I think it's interesting, if nothing else. I'd hate to be striding about in that. I mean, it really annoyed me when a couple of years ago when we were going about in that Puma kit that about 12 clubs had in the UK. That kind of thing just pisses me off. So rather than
by far the biggest story is what we've lost rather than what we're gaining here.
Yeah, that's true.
Who is no longer involved.
Remove the stone of shame. Attach the stone of triumph.
Exactly. Let's pick it up in the year if we're not happy with the quality and the deal and anything else. I'd be flabbergasted if it's worse than what we've had to suffer from a retail point of view from the last decade or so.
Totally agree. Moving on then, Cammy, the SPFL have been out on the attack over the previous week, in which they've made it clear that they did nothing wrong, that there's nothing to see here. They made it clear 8 times in the last 9 days, in fact, be it through open letters or interviews by either their chairman, Murdoch McLennan, their chief executive, Neil Doncaster, or non-executive director, Karen McCluskey. That's a lot of denials if there's really absolutely nothing gone wrong.
Yeah, an interesting approach. Each statement seems to increase in size as time goes on, leading so much so that all of a sudden that people who have refused to give interviews to any media in the past have now decided to have Q&As with themselves, which is certainly an interesting approach and highly entertaining from our side of things. It's very strange, and I think it's a very tangled web the SPFL are voluntarily weaving, because as far as Rangers are concerned, we haven't progressed with any kind of other form of action since we are now waiting for the EGM to come around. But yet they seem to be very, very proactive in coming out to deny things that either haven't been said or they've said themselves in some other manner, and they are contradicting themselves left, right and centre. So yes, it seems for a governance which very much feels as if there's nothing wrong and that they have been completely on side with everything. They are certainly doing a lot of denying.
Andy, one thing that I think that this has shown is that there literally isn't anybody in Scotland who, if they want to make themselves look better, just need to a section of the community suggest that they're against Rangers, where we've seen Neil Doncaster, universally regarded as a donkey for many years, is suddenly being put forward as a paragon of footballing administration simply because it's Rangers. You're saying, hang on a minute, this is dodgy.
The greatest irony for me that nobody's really highlighted is that for long and weary, our dear friends across the city have been telling us how corrupt Scottish football is. Resolution 12 and all this absolute crackpottery. And now they've had to jump to the other side of the fence and say, well, actually, they're not that bad. It's Rangers that got the problem. It's just a constant kind of vote-a-facci for the usual suspects, back and forth, back and forth. The thing that I would like to point out, I think has went well under the radar since it came up, was Douglas Park asking about their whistleblower policy. Because when I read that, I thought that is spot on, because most companies in this day and age of any size or nature who claim to have any form of diversity in their workforce or their plans or members have some kind of whistleblowing policy, because it promotes good cultures, it prevents cliques, it prevents insular behaviour, cover-ups, nepotism, cronyism, all these things which are apparently inherent at the SPFL if you really dig deeper. So I've noticed that that's not been answered. I don't know if it's been answered, but when Doncaster and co are coming out and saying I'm mystified at what Rangers have got, then what the question they should be asking is, well, Rangers have got a whistleblower. I wonder what it is they've got, because there's something. And it's this notion of whistleblowers kind of been washed away, which I find really, really interesting. So when Rangers actually do come out with whatever it is they've got, it might not be earth-shattering stuff, but if it still demonstrates that a company that the football clubs are all members of is being run in a poor, poor manner with questions to be answered, then that's enough. It doesn't need to be brown envelopes between people. It doesn't need to be that explosive. It just needs to be a demonstration that you've got a guy at the top who, I'm sure Doncaster is a nice guy. I mean, he does interviews, he speaks well, and he's level-headed, and he never gets emotional whatsoever. He's quite robotic, which can be a good thing in this atmosphere. But the bottom line is he's getting paid nearly $400,000, and that shit show a vote, which is really when he earns his corn, demonstrates something that you cannot hide from him. So it'll be interesting to see how it pans out and what actually happens. I don't expect Rangers to get support, because I think what will happen now is the clubs will kind of show a united front that they've got bigger things to deal with, and that they'll be actually totally focused on the fact that a lot of them might be out of business if this kind of scenario continues. So I think that our complaint will get largely washed away. But see if at the end game, and let's be honest, the end game is to make sure that the top is clean, because you've got Doncaster sitting with two people either side of them, Rod McKenzie and Murdoch McLennan, right? If Rangers' aim is to eventually get that more equitable and fairer and transparent, then it might not be this kick to the balls that does it. It might be the next kick to the balls, because there'll be another fuck up at that in the SPFL. That is guaranteed.
Martin, I suppose my concern is that Rangers could have a photograph of Neil Doncaster rimming John Nelms's cat, and it wouldn't embarrass him enough into resigning. But what has actually annoyed me this week has been the pundits. Rangers' behaviour has been disgraceful. Rangers have followed the process that is laid out in the league's own rules on how to go about a complaint.
Well, when does that stop anything being disgraceful, Rangers?
You're right. I spoke earlier about naivety, and then I said
that. I mean, there will be a compliant media that we have that want just to get this kind of smoothed over and get closure, I guess. They don't want a big scandal to investigate. God knows there's plenty of scandals around that they could be investigating a lot more. They kind of want this swept away and decisions made, I guess, about kind of where we go from here. Well, that's all lovely, but it can't just end at that. Rangers have a justifiable and reasonable position to say that was an utter shambles, and we're not convinced that vote was legit. And we need to look closer at that, because this is a governance issue. Now, governance issues they're pretty dull, really. They're administrative. And Andy's right, and we're not going to find something that's going to blow the roof off Scottish football. I don't believe that. We don't need it, though. We just need to have enough that shows this is not proper governance. And given the salaries at play, there needs to be change. That's what Rangers want. They want him going, because you can start swapping chief execs and swapping the kind of teams that we use to try and make friends and influence people. That's a big block to doing that, and he needs removed before we can start to do that. This might just be, as Andy said, the first blow, or a big blow. It might not be the decisive one. But you need to wear this process down. McCann did it in the 90s. It was the George Cadetti thing. Didn't get Farry then, but he continued and continued. And I think there's a long game here. Going back to your original point, David, if an organisation is absolutely certain that they have done things properly, could have come to different decisions, but we can justify every decision we made, they should be appointing the widest investigation possible. If you are at the high command there, and you know there's nothing, you'd let Rangers appoint the investigation.
Yeah, to get it out of the way.
Exactly. You want to be as open as possible because then you win. Because there's nothing there. Rangers have obviously made a lot of noise a couple of weeks ago, making less and less because they don't have to. Because they're falling over themselves to cover these tracks and they keep continuing to fuck up. So, no, I've no issue with the way Rangers have handled this. It might not bring the whole house of cards down, but there's definitely a long game at play before we can really start to gain political influence, which we've not had in Scottish football for 20 years.
Yep, an absolute fact. Right, folks, that'll do us for this week. But as Cammy mentioned earlier, I live high on the hog of all these blue pounds that I get in. And the reason I'm able to do that is due to our Patreon site. Cammy, why should people sign up for that apart from to keep me in expensive house coats?
Because you've got wonderful content, the like of which from both Martyn and Andy.
Coming out my arse.
Exactly. Very simply, David, it's because you can't go back to full-time employment. You've become accustomed to this life, and people need to keep financing it, my friend. So, yes, for hours and hours of content when you are very severely missing your football fix, we've got tons and tons of variety for you across our Patreon site, and you can do that for significantly less than a MyGers membership. Maybe not quite across a year, but yeah, just there or thereabouts.
Thank you so much to everyone for giving up their time and coming and having, I thought, a very enlightening chat. First of all, Andy McGowan.
Pleasure as always.
Martyn Ramsey.
Pleasure, gentlemen.
Cameron Bell.
A joy as always, boys. Thank you very much.
I would just like to thank our executive producers in London, Mike Lee and Paul Myers. We will, of course, be back, but never miss anything that goes on in Scottish football. Breaking news up within minutes of any big story pertaining to Rangers. There's the daily news update. There are loads of great entertaining shows, as Cammy said. There are lots of stuff, but we will be back. There'll always be a free podcast from Heart and Hand, and we will be back next week with it. Until then, have a good one. Stay safe. Take care. Bye-bye.